Welcome back. We're in Genesis chapter 39, verse 7. Let's go. Genesis chapter 39, verse 7. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph. And she said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" What's going on here? So Jacob was sold into slavery. He was then put in charge of Potiphar's stuff, and he did an incredible job. The Lord blessed him. He succeeded. He, like the last episode, is like, have you ever heard of a slave who was successful and prosperous while they're enslaved? And that's exactly what happened with Joseph. He didn't focus on throwing a pity party and about where I am and I can't do this and looking back in the past and the future. He was just like, this is where God has me. I'm going to work hard. And the Lord, honored the God in that. And people around him saw God through what he was doing, through his hard work, through his trust, through his results. And that's what God wants us to do. He doesn't want us to throw a pity party and say, I can't believe I'm in this circumstance. I can't believe I live in this part of town. I'm at this company. I got passed over at this promotion. I got let go. Yeah, that's hard, worldly stuff, and we're going to go through things during our life, but God is going to use those circumstances to refine us. He is going to use those circumstances to test us, not to tempt us, to test us to see if we really love him more than the things of this world. If we are able to let go and not hold a grudge, if we are able to not be bitter, but to love, right? So many people live in this past and they're like, I just can't believe this. And they cast their anger at a person, at a circumstance, maybe a decision that they made themselves. They're angry at themselves. But Joseph's not looking back. We don't see him sitting here complaining. He's just trusting God and working hard. So what's going on? So his master had trusted him with everything. He'd done an incredible job. His master understood that and saw that and gave credit to God. And now this guy's wife, for whatever reason, is going to tempt him. She is going to test him. She is going to see if she can get him to do this awful thing, right? So it says, and it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph. So maybe she thought he was good looking. Maybe she did this with all of the slaves. Maybe she was sleeping around with a lot of the different slaves and not just him. And this is her thing. And maybe she's just that person, kind of that bratty child or wife or something where she's just like, I want to get my way, and if I don't get my way, I'm going to throw a fit right here, right now. And that's essentially what happens, because he says no. He's like, I am not going to sleep with you, because she says lie with me. But notice that word lie, L-I-E. The enemy is always lying to you and tempting you to do things that you think will bring happiness, and they may for a moment, until that new car smell wears off and you're unfulfilled again. Only God can fill that God-sized hole that we all desire to be filled. That's why people, turn to drugs and getting drunk and look for happiness in friendships and relationships in all the wrong places, because we're looking to fill that desire. But remember, it's a God-sized desire, and only God can fill that. So we want to remember that. We don't want to go and do things, because the enemy, what does he come to do? The enemy seeks to steal, to kill, and to destroy. He is the father of all lies. But God says that he has come that we may live life and life more abundantly. So the enemy is constantly going to lie to us. He was whispering into Joseph's ear through this woman, just sleep with me. It'll be fun. You'll feel great, right? You have everything else that my master has given to you, and you're a slave, right? Don't you deserve this? And won't it feel good to know that you slept with your master's wife? I mean, wow. And he's like, nope, not going to believe those lies. The enemy is throwing fiery darts at you every day, throughout the day, and he's trying to get you to bite. He wants you to look at that certain thing. He wants you to lust after that certain thing. He wants you to covet after that certain thing. He wants you to lie and steal, so that he can lie and steal and destroy you. Because that's his goal. His goal, a lot of people have the wrong idea of hell. They're like, I'm going to go and hang out in hell. It may be hot, but I'll just be getting drunk and doing drugs and partying down there with the devil. The devil's not in charge. There's no bartender. There's no fun places to go. It's the complete absence of God, and it's a complete absence of goodness. There will be nothing good about hell, like literally zero. There will be zero pleasure, zero happiness, and zero joy. So seek God, because he is the one who fills and fulfills. So this lady is tempting him. Verse 8, but he refused and said, look, my master doesn't know who's with me in the house. He's committed all that he has to my hand. So he's acknowledging, he's saying, listen, I don't want to sleep with you. My master has treated me incredibly. Yes, I'm a slave, and I've got to do what he tells me to do. But God put me in this position. I'm not going to step outside of that. I don't want to violate my master's trust, because he's given me so much, and he treats me well. A lot better than these other slaves, and God's been blessing things through me. And he's saying he's never kept anything back from me except for you, because you're his wife. He's saying, I can't do that, right? The only thing I can't do is sleep with you and test his food. Because he doesn't want me to test his food. I'm guessing he doesn't want Joseph to test his food, because people were often in those days trying to poison important people. That's why they would have someone test the wine, test the food, to make sure there wasn't poison in it. And this guy didn't want Joseph testing it, because he didn't want Joseph to get poisoned. So it's like, literally, those are the only two things he's withheld from me, are kind of testing his food and his wife. So no, I'm not going to do this. I don't care what you say, or how beautiful you are, or how certain we are that we're going to get away with it, right? So many people in this life, they're like, can I get away with it? If I can get away with it, I'm going to do it. And that shouldn't be our benchmark. That shouldn't be our litmus test of whether we should do something or not. It should be, it's wrong. It's not right. It doesn't honor God. And we all find ourselves in this. The question is, do we justify it and just barrel right through it like a bull in a china shop and be like, I don't care, I'm doing this? Or do we say, I understand that that's not a good witness. It's not good with my finances. It's not good to my spiritual health, my emotional health, my physical health, whatever. God, help me to overcome this, right? That's what a lot of us Christians should be going through. It's like, I did this. I'm thinking about this. I'm coveting. I'm lusting. I'm something. Lord, help me not to do that. And you may not be able to overcome it right away, right? Because the spirit is willing, but our flesh that we live in is weak. But we can ask God to help us through those circumstances. And you bet Joseph is asking God right now to help him through this. Verse 10. So it was, as he spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not need her to lie with her or to be with her. God calls us not to commit adultery. Joseph was being honorable, right? We don't want to commit adultery. And if it's something that you're struggling with in one way or another, ask God to help you. And you may not be able to overcome it immediately. Some of you will. It may take weeks, months, or years, but something that you get to work on with God, and that with his help you can overcome. Verse 11. But it happened about this time when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the other men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside, right? So she probably arranged for it that she would be alone when he came in, that no one else would be around, right? She was probably like, all the rest of you slaves and servants, you need to go, a couple 100 yards away and do this thing. Go blah, blah, blah over there, because she just wanted time with Joseph so that he couldn't say, all right, there's people around, they might catch us. No, she was probably hoping that two things. One, if he said yes, he'd be more likely to say yes if there's no one around to tell on him or see it. And number two, if he said no, then she could concoct to basically yell rape, which you're going to see in a second here. But notice that it says when he went into the house and none of the men in the house was inside. So she probably arranged that. Two, he didn't know that none of them were there. It sounds to me like usually other people were in the house. That would be the custom. But at this point, none of them were there. But if it was customary that, or if he knew that no one was going to be there and it was just going to be he and the wife, that would be a situation to avoid, right? If you're ever in a situation where it's just going to be you alone with another woman, or if you're a woman and you're going to be alone with another man, it is my strong encouragement to you to not do that, right? Don't text someone of the opposite sex just alone. Add your spouse, add their spouse to it, add some other people so it's a group text and it's less intimate. Don't be alone with that person, even if it's in a crowded restaurant. Take heed to these things lest you fall. We've got to defend our marriage. We've got to defend what God calls. We've got to defend the other person's, sanctity in marriage, or if they're, etc. So we want to be very careful and cognizant of this. But he finds himself alone with this woman. And 13, it says, "And so it was, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, 'See, he has brought unto us a Hebrew to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And it happened, when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside.'" So she's lying. She's mad that he wouldn't sleep with her. So she makes up this complete lie. She's saying he raped me or tried to rape me, right? No one was there to witness it. She's telling all these other people. Who do you think they're going to believe? That's problematic. And you can look at it and you say, I thought God was blessing him. I thought he was succeeding. I thought he was prosperous. And God's going to allow this to happen? Yeah. Or cause this to happen? Yeah. God's sovereign. And he's working all things out all the time. He knows exactly how they're going to end, how we're going to respond in our free will. But he wants to test us to make sure that we love him and trust him, and not rise up and start pointing the finger and yelling and just defending ourselves and everything. So lots of lessons coming out of this, and we'll pick up on that tomorrow in 19. The biggest takeaway for us today is probably be very careful not to let yourself be alone with someone of the opposite sex, or texting someone of the opposite sex regularly, right? If it's going to be an ongoing text, or even the first text, you decide, you have discretion. And add your spouse to it, add their spouse to it, add a friend to it, right? So it's just less likely. And be careful ever being alone with someone, just you and that person of the opposite sex. Lord, thank you. Help us to learn incredible lessons. Joseph has taught us so much through this. I know it's a picture of Jesus, and help us to be more like you, Lord, more like Joseph, more like Jesus. Help us to flee from temptation. Help us to say no. Help us not to covet or lust. Help us to do it even if we know it's going to cost us money or status or anything like that, Lord, that we might come to know you better through these tests, that we may trust you more in our circumstances instead of throwing pity parties and trying to change something in the past which we cannot change. Help us this day, Lord, in your name. Amen. This podcast brought to you in part by the Portfolio Protection Store, where smart investors go to protect their life savings from stock market losses. Visit our website to register for our webinar, theportfolioprotectionstore.com. The webinar is about portfolio protection and safe money ideas for ages 50 plus. Visit theportfolioprotectionstore.com. Located in Austin, Texas, license number 2887886.